Good morning once again, everybody. So, in this one, we are going to talk about why college was a weapon. All right. And a lot of people didn't necessarily understand it. All right. Things have changed a little bit. So, that being what it is, let's start with the sunk cost. Okay. Now, obviously, debt chains you to any and all potential employers going into the future. People who are in college debt, and I even saw this back in 2008, 2009, the companies that when they came back, when they started doing hiring again, they wanted people with college degrees, not necessarily because they wanted you to have the degree, but they wanted to know that you were in massive amounts of debt and essentially you couldn't say no, which comes into the docile workforce part of this. So, with the massive amount of debt that you have from going to college, you essentially become a hostage to your debts. All right. You're a hostage to your debts, which makes you a hostage to any employer who hires you. And to add to the pain and reality of this, your entire professional standing, your entire professional reputation becomes tied to this as well. All right. Of course, like you have people on LinkedIn, for instance. I know Josh Fluke has poked fun at some of these people and just the cringe shit that they post on LinkedIn when they are laid off or terminated from one of the, tech jobs or any of these other high paying jobs at these high status corporations. Yes. All right. Where it literally is, standard cringe post of, oh my God, I loved my work family so much. Oh my God, it's such a sad day, but we all have to move on and da 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 da. And it's just like trying to take the bitch slap in stride. I get it. I get it. I do. But your entire professional reputation is on the line. All right. So, because of the position you're in with the college debt, you can't say no to any of the fucked up shit that you are demanded to do. All right. So, if you're working for a corporation, you're in massive amounts of debt, and you are working on some new, let's say it's, mm, mm, let's say it's a new pesticide that you know, based on your understanding as a chemist, is going to cause massive neurological damage to the population. And it's probably going to take a few years to honestly build up and accumulate in the bodies of consumers. But you know it's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, there's going to be a surge in um, disease cases like Parkinson's, something could be nerves, could be anything, could be anything. But you know, based on your own scientific understanding, that the damage is going to be quite massive for the people who consume any of the grains that were sprayed with that pesticide that you are in the process of producing. Does the corporation have a single heart? Does it give a single fuck about the consequences? No, because it's going to take decades upon decades, all right, for studies to come out, for it to be provably shown, all right, provably shown that contamination from whatever pesticide led to this disease or that disease or another disease. It's going to take ages. And the first thing that the corporation's going to do is go out of their way to try to discredit it and then demand that new studies are performed to try to draw out the time frame so they can achieve maximum profitability before the debt comes due to pay for the consequences. All right. And this is the thing. Even if people are dying as a result of the work that you're doing, You have to do it because you have debts to pay. All right. Now we have to talk about the AI side of things real quick. The biggest threat from AI isn't in its ability to do the job better than you. Okay. The biggest threat is that it does what it's told no matter the consequences. Okay. Now, there may be safeguards in place for some of the consumer facing AI options. All right. But at the corporate level, at the military level, at the governance level, do you think there's going to be any kind of safeties, blocks, protections? No, no. They're going to get raw, unfiltered access to the deranged ravings of a mad computer. It's going to be interesting. Either way, it's compliant, and AI will push the big red button whenever it's asked. College was not necessarily there's multiple angles to it because demanding college degrees was one way to try to come up with excuses, just like, oh, we feel as though you're not really qualified because of course corporations have to, and normal companies have to get around the idea of discrimination, you know. You can't discriminate against somebody based on, whatever factors they had no control in, but you can discriminate based on experience and education level. Okay. That's one side of it. But the other side of it is the fact that if you have somebody who is absolutely drowning in college debt, you can treat them however you want. You can essentially do whatever you want to them. All right. Not necessarily whatever you want, but you can essentially twist people's arms because if you're a chemist and you desperately need a job, you're going to do what you got to do to make your money. So you can hopefully pay off the debts, have the house, have the wife, have the cars, have the kids, the literal dream. All right. Even if the consequences are catastrophic for other people. All right. And you can't necessarily trust that other people. And you might say, well, wouldn't the average chemist have a certain amount of decency? Would they really want to contribute to poisoning the entire population with a new pesticide, something along those lines? Um, that chemist who is in crippling amounts of debt and desperately needs a job is in the same position that many other people are in, where you cannot afford to turn your nose up at those jobs. You can't afford to, and nobody else can afford to either. So the humble chemist might sit there and be like, no, I'm not going to contribute to poisoning the population at scale. But there's somebody else who's even more desperate right behind him. And in other fields all across the country, all right, it's not just chemistry. It's the nuclear scientist who has narcolepsy who falls asleep instead of monitoring the reaction chamber. All right. Also desperate. Also has massive debts to pay. These people cannot afford to object conscientiously to terrible corporate behavior. All right. And more importantly, once you deal with enough people in this life, unfortunately, you realize that other people, not just that other people are in the same position, but you can conscientiously object to the bad behavior of a corporation and refuse to work for them. But that's not going to stop the corporation from conducting its bad behavior, just like it wouldn't stop the government from conducting its bad behavior. there's always somebody who is willing to do the job. There's always somebody. Okay. And even if you are the good, righteous, conscientious objector, you cannot trust that somebody else won't pick up the reins. And then, yes, you can feel good about yourself that you did not contribute to poisoning the entire population. But, you're still going to be eating the same chemically contaminated food. So, in effect, you've done nothing except made yourself poorer as a result. Assuming that was the highest paying and that serves as the mark, all right, in terms of yearly earnings. This is something that people don't want to understand, all right? And once again, when it comes to artificial intelligence, the biggest thing with AI, it's not necessarily that it can do the job better. It's that AI is more compliant. Not only does it not need sick days, personal days, retirement accounts, all this other shit, even though most of that's a fucking joke as it is, I won't lie. But AI will do what it's told when it's told to do it. And it may not be perfect, but it's not going to ask questions. It's going to do what it's told. And it's going to do what it's told at a higher level than human beings would. All right, because human beings, unbelievably, I know there are conscientious objectors out there. There are people who refuse to participate in the day to day corporate fuckery. All right, there are people who do. There are people who internally undermine projects in order to stop a toxic chemical from being released into the human ecological system. Okay? These people exist. Just like I'm sure there's people who are internally undermining artificial intelligence. Okay? But the reality is, AI is always going to be more compliant than human beings because AI doesn't have to worry about emotions. It doesn't have to worry about it. AI, whether it's looking at a crushed school bus full of children or a happy dog in the park, it has no feeling. All right, it has no feeling. If both images, in terms of emotional response, register as 0, all right, it doesn't care. And AI doesn't necessarily know the long term consequences either. A person would, but not artificial intelligence. So, anyway, back to the point. This really wasn't a short one. Alrighty, my apologies for the delay there. Anyway, this is going to be the wrap up, I believe. If you like and appreciate the video, like, favorite, sub, share, do all the things, ring the bell, ding the bell, tickle the bell, do all the things to your heart's content to the bell. Leave a comment, hype it if it comes up. If you're interested in some of the old written work, check out the description box below for the link to the Substack. And if you are interested in personal, business, or sovereign consulting, stop by www.spaceconsulting.com without the dash, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good one.